You may have heard the verse from Philippians 1:21, which says, "For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." But what you may not know is that the whole letter of Philippians has more to say about suffering than almost any other book in the New Testament. The Apostle Paul wrote this letter to the church in Philippi, where some of his closest friends and most long-term supporters lived. And Paul, in the meantime, was suffering in prison. His friends in Philippi were also suffering from religious persecution, and all of them were sharing in the suffering of Jesus to the point where Paul wrote about dying like Jesus. So when Paul says to live is Christ, he means that to go on living means to go on suffering. It means to continue being in prison, to continue being persecuted for obeying God. That's why he says living is being like Christ, because Christ suffered for his obedience to God's will as well. Yet, Paul knows suffering is his and the Philippians' future. They will both go on living and suffering in the same way Jesus did. Just as Jesus' suffering brought life to the whole world, surprisingly, their suffering will bring life to those around them. But Paul also says to die is gain. Most of us don't think about dying as a way to get something, but as the place where we lose everything. However, Paul knows that when he dies, he will be with Jesus, which for him is the greatest gain imaginable. Just as Jesus, before his death, rejoiced that he would soon be rejoined with his Father, Paul rejoices that when he and his friends die, they will be with God too.